Maximize your beekeeping time using nukes and equalizing. If you properly use equalizing and nukes within your beekeeping, you'll save countless tired, sweaty hours in the bee yard. I learned this from commercial beekeepers who have been doing it over 20 years, some as many as 50 years. You always want to have nukes. This nuke right here is a 6-frame polystyrene nuke box, but you can have any type of nuke box. Just make a couple splits in the spring and you'll have a few extra hives in the form of nukes. This will save you infinite time throughout the year when problems arise, because nukes are the easiest and fastest way to fix any problems within your apiary. If any hive becomes queenless at any point throughout the year, all you have to do is add a nuke to it. It's already going to be full of brood and have like a strong queen laying eggs. So this will be like basically just a mini hive. That's what a nuke is. And any queenless hive that you have, you can add it to that, and they are almost certainly going to accept that queen because there's already brood in there, so it smells right, the pheromones are right. Also, there's a laying queen, and bees are really attracted to the pheromone that the queen gives off when she is laying the eggs. So by adding her to a hive that's queenless, while she's laying, she's much more likely to be accepted. If you added a queen in a cage, she's much less likely to be accepted because she doesn't smell the same because she hasn't been laying eggs for a couple days. So by adding the queen through the use of a nuke, you are saving time. If you add a nuke to a big queenless hive, they will most likely accept her even if you don't cage her. So you save time and you don't have to go through that hive, a million times, knocking down every single queen cell. If you add the nuke to it, the queen more than likely will be accepted and go through every single frame of the hive and destroy every single queen cell in there. So this just saves you time. You find the problem, you find the hive's queenless, you don't have to stress out, figure out where to order a queen. Is it late September and you can't find a queen anywhere and you have to order one from the south and it'll be 6 days. It's stressful, it's frustrating, and most of all, it takes time to figure these things out. And so instead of having to deal with all of that, all you have to do is have a nuke around and make a couple extra splits in the spring to use to fix any problems during the summer. One of the most common black holes for time as a new beekeeper is laying workers. Laying workers are when your hive goes queenless for a period long enough to where the workers in the hive develop certain parts of their ovaries to allow them to lay eggs. They're not good eggs, they're not going to turn into worker bees, but they will hatch and turn into drones. And so a lot of beekeepers spend hours and hours and hours trying to fix this. They go through, they shake out all the bees somewhere, hoping the workers won't be able to fly back. And they do all different kinds of things. They, try to introduce a queen bee, and most of the time the laying workers will kill her and not accept her, and you've wasted your time. So just don't spend all that time on trying to fix the laying worker. Just use a nuke. The nuke's right there. You already made an extra couple splits in the spring, and you just have to add that nuke in. And if you really want to be safe, you could cage the queen. But it just takes so much less time to use your nuke that you built up in the springtime rather than trying to introduce a new queen, failing, potentially losing the money, and losing the time it took for you to drive to the bee supply store, pick up the queen, come back to your house, introduce the queen, come back to check to see if she survived. Well, okay, she's dead. So now I went through the entire hive and she's dead. Can't find her anywhere, no eggs. So instead of going through all of that time, energy, and effort, just go in and add your nuke. You can cage her to be safe, but more than likely, because of the brood pheromones and because this nuke is strong because you built it up in the springtime, the bees will just accept that new queen. The laying workers will stop and you'll have a perfectly good hive again. I already touched on how one of the best qualities about a nuke is they're always there. If you make a couple extra, make more than you think you need, and then you have them around the entire summer. If you get into late fall and you look and you see, my queen, her brood pattern's failing. She is not really laying eggs properly. A lot of it's turning into drones. That's awful. So all you have to do is go through your nuke. You're still going to have that brand new awesome queen in your nuke. And all you have to do is add these frames into a big hive body, and you will have successfully requeened that hive. And if you didn't have that nuke, you would have probably not been able to get a queen and you would have had to combine. So keep that nuke around. It helps you keep your numbers up. And as always, it helps you save time. You have to do less work when you have, You spend a little bit of work in the spring making the nuke to have that insurance the entire year. And for any problems that come up, pretty much all of them can be fixed by nuke. Let's say it's September 17th, and I go through this hive. Oh, what do you know? That's a bad brood pattern. I see some queen cells. This hive, oh, their queen died. They're done. So I go through, I can't find any eggs in the entire hive. I see queen cells, and I'm like, oh no, it's mid-September. Even if the queen comes back from a mating flight, which is very unlikely, this hive still won't be able to make it through winter because they won't build up enough bees. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I guess I have to combine them with my other hive and lose something. Except you were smart and you made a nuke in the springtime. So now you just pull out 4 or 5 of the frames, depending on your size of the nuke, and then you just add the nuke right in. You know, boom, boom. Oh, what? Wow, there's a queen there. So set the queen in the middle and you just keep going. All these frames into this hive. And now, not only does this hive actually have a queen that will be back before winter, they will also be a lot stronger because they have all the bees that were already in the hive, plus they have all the bees from the nuke. And so this will be a really strong hive before the winter time. And that's just one of the most important part about overwintering bees in any climate is you have to have a lot of bees to make it through the winter, or a strong, healthy population of bees. And when you're combining the nuke, the queen will likely go out and kill all the queen cells, but you can do it just to be safe, especially if it's really late in the year and you really don't want to lose the queen. You can also destroy the queen cells just to help her out. But this just saves you so much time and you fixed your problem almost instantly, just like that. And let's say you made too many nukes in the spring. You got really excited about saving time and you made 5 nukes and you only needed 3 throughout the summer. 2 things, super easy. You don't have to do anything special, no time spent. You just keep the bees in the nuke through the winter as long as it's not a plastic nuke. And your bees you'll have a nice starter colony in the spring. Almost no time invested into it, it'll be perfect. But if it is in a temporary box, like a plastic box, then all you have to do is pinch the queen, one of your older queens in your other hives, and add this brood into there. And now you have a really, really strong colony. And that just ensures that that one will make it through winter and that these bees are used during the winter time and they don't just, die off in a plastic nuke box that doesn't have the same insulation. This is polystyrene, but I use a lot of temporary nuke boxes and you wouldn't want to overwinter your bees in a temporary nuke box. Have you used nukes like this in the past? Let me know in the comments. I've been using nukes this way for several years, as I mentioned in the intro, and it's worked wonders for me, saved me a lot of time and energy and effort as well. So I really enjoy using nukes in this way. And the other thing that absolutely revolutionized my beekeeping was equalizing. I did not do this before the last 2 or 3 years I started. And it's a pretty simple idea. I'm gonna use this nuke as a demonstration, but it doesn't matter what's in the nuke as long as it's weak. Like this could be a 10-frame hive, and that's a perfectly good example of how you would be able to equalize. So if I go through the springtime, I'm like, dang, this hive is absolutely massive. This hive, let's say it has 5 frames of brood in mid-April. And I know that I don't want it to swarm early in the year. So this little nuke right here, they only have 2 frames of brood. And so I'm worried about them ever building up. And so I know that if I move brood from this 5 frames of brood hive into the 2 frame of brood hive, then this hive won't swarm and this one will build up to make a honey crop or be split on time. So how do I equalize in between these hives? How does this help prevent swarming? Well, I go through here and I found, wow, this frame is full of emerging brood. So I have tons of emerging brood that will heat itself really quickly. And so I set it right in the middle of the brood nest. I would have my other frames of brood from the nuke are right here. And I set this frame of brood right here. So now, just pretend this hive has 3 frames of brood. And now this hive only has 4 frames of brood. And let's say my nuke, they were really good at making honey in the fall, and they had tons of honey in their hive and not that much brood. They had a whole 4 frames of honey in a 6-frame nuke. But this hive, because it was so big, they ate more honey. And so now my big hive only has 1 frame of honey. Well, then what I would do is switch out the empty frames from here and put my 2 honey frames into this hive. And now this hive has 3 frames of brood, 2 frames of honey, and 1 frame of drawn comb. And my big hive now they got more honey. They got 3 frames of honey, but only 4 frames of brood. So you could even equalize them to 3 and 3, but if you don't want to do quite that much equalizing, it also makes sense to just do kind of a smaller round of equalizing. But now both hives are the proper size to be split in, for me, mid to late May, and neither of them will swarm, because this hive, if I hadn't left them to swarm or hadn't equalized them, they would have likely swarmed because they would have built up too fast, and I might not have been able to get to them to add more boxes. And then this hive may not have built up, but now they're both doing what I want them to do because I equalized in between them. The more you can keep your bees the same, that allows you to do the same exact things on your bees at the same time. So instead of adding a honey super to this hive in mid-May and adding a honey super to this hive in late June, I'm gonna be able to do that at the same time, which saves me lots of time. I can bring all of my supers out at the same time. I can split all my hives on May 18th instead of one on May 15th and one on June 6th. So keeping things the same is what makes you efficient. And I love beekeeping a lot, but I can just get more hives if I want to spend more time with my bees. If it's more fun, at least for me, if I spend my time properly in the beehive rather than kind of flail around and don't know what to do. So I just rather have the time to do other things and enjoy my bees by planning and properly equalizing and using my nukes to save this time. So my first inspection, like I said, I equalized. This hive now has 3 frames of brood, and then the bigger hive now has 4 frames of brood. Then I come back 2 weeks later because I want to give them some time to grow, but I also don't want to give them too much time to make sure that none of them will swarm, even though they're less likely to swarm because I made them similar sizes. So now my nuke, they're firing on all cylinders. They've gotten up to about 3.5 frames of broodish. So they've grown a little bit since the last time I was there. And now my big hive, they've rebounded even more. They have 6 frames of brood. So they're pretty close, they're relatively close to swarming. Another frame or 2 of brood, and they're pretty likely to start swarming. So I have a 3rd hive. And this is now the 3rd hive. The other nuke's the good size. So now I have my 6 frames of brood in here, and I didn't get to 1 hive to equalize. So this hive only has 2 frames of brood in early May. So I want to boost this up and make this smaller. So I do this again 2 weeks later. So I do like to do it on my first inspection, 2 weeks later, and then another 2 weeks after that. And by the 3rd time, almost all hives will be the same size. Some will be slightly larger because some queens are better than others, but almost all hives will be roughly the same size. And that will mean that I'll have very few swarms. I have never lost a swarm. I don't think so, at least. It's possible. That's because I split so much. But even for most normal beekeepers who don't split as much, if you equalize that 3 times in that 6-week period from your first inspection till a month later, you will lose pretty few amount of swarms. So that will just make your beekeeping so much easier. You won't be running around trying to catch a swarm that's up in a tree 40 feet. It will save you so much time, effort, and energy. Now that you have an idea of what equalizing is, but you want to know all the details, check out this video above. It will tell you everything you need to know about equalizing.